It started with a phone call that sounded like static and a whisper buried deep inside the noise. A whisper that said "help me" before the line went dead. And Detective Aaron Miles could not stop thinking about it as he drove through the dark stretch of highway leading to the Whitlock residence. The house stood alone at the edge of a forest, a large two-story colonial with paint peeling off its sides and a single light flickering in an upstairs window like a dying candle. Though the power company claimed the house had been disconnected for months. Aaron stepped out of the car, the cold biting through his coat, and stared at the house as the wind carried the faint sound of something tapping against glass, rhythmic like a heartbeat. He pushed open the rusty gate, its screech cutting through the stillness, and walked along the path that led to the front door, his boots crunching on gravel that seemed too loud in the suffocating quiet. The report said the Whitlock family disappeared without a trace. A mother, a father, two young children, all gone as if they had evaporated from the earth. And the house was left untouched, doors locked from the inside, food still on the table, and the family car parked in the driveway. Aaron reached the door and noticed something strange carved into the wood. Symbols etched deep and uneven, as if someone had done it in a hurry. Symbols that made no sense but somehow made him feel watched, as though eyes were peering at him from cracks in the walls. He knocked and the sound echoed through the hollow house before fading into silence. But then he heard it again, that tapping sound, this time louder, coming from upstairs, slow and deliberate like fingers on glass. He turned the handle, expecting resistance, but the door creaked open on its own, and a wave of stale air rushed out carrying with it the faint smell of something rotten, something that had been hidden for too long. Inside the house, everything looked frozen in time. Coats still hung by the door, a pair of tiny pink shoes neatly placed on the mat, a family photo tilted on the wall showing 4 smiling faces with eyes that now seemed empty and lifeless in the dim light. Aaron's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing on the living room where a half-played board game lay on the rug, pieces scattered as if someone had left mid-turn, and a glass of milk sat on the table with a thick film forming on its surface. He called out their names, his voice trembling slightly as it bounced off the walls, but the only reply was the steady creak of the house settling and that persistent tapping from above. He climbed the staircase slowly, every step groaning under his weight, and noticed deep scratches along the banister like claw marks dragging down toward the first floor, long and uneven as if made by something in panic or something not quite human. The hallway upstairs stretched long and narrow, doors on either side closed tight except for one at the end that stood ajar, a faint light flickering within, the same light he saw from outside. As he approached, the tapping stopped, replaced by a soft humming sound, low and almost childlike, a tune that made his stomach knot because it was off-key, broken in places like someone trying to remember how the song went. He pushed the door open and found himself in what must have been the children's room, walls covered with faded wallpaper of clouds and stars, toys scattered across the floor, and in the center of the room, a small rocking chair moving back and forth though the air was still. And on the bed lay 2 dolls with their faces turned to the wall, their limbs twisted in unnatural positions, as if someone had bent them with force. The light came from a single lamp in the corner, its bulb flickering erratically, casting long shadows that danced across the room like figures shifting in the dark. Aaron moved closer, his throat dry, and noticed something on the walls. Faint handprints smeared in what looked like ash or soot, small hands reaching upward as if trying to climb out. Then he heard it again, that whisper, so close it felt like it was inside his ear, saying the same thing as before, "Help me," only this time it sounded like a chorus of voices, men, women, children, all layered together in a desperate cry. He spun around, shining his light across the room, but there was no one there. Only the rocking chair that now moved faster as if pushed by invisible hands. His pulse pounded in his ears as he backed out into the hallway, and that was when he saw the photographs hanging on the wall, black and white portraits of the Whitlock family. Except something was wrong, because in each photo their faces were blurred, features smudged like melted wax, except for the eyes, which were clear and wide and staring straight at him. Aaron reached for his radio to call for backup, but all he got was static, and behind it that same whispering growing louder until it was screaming, and the sound made his head ache like his skull was about to split open. He dropped the radio and stumbled toward the stairs, but when he looked down, the staircase stretched longer than before, impossibly long, the bottom disappearing into darkness that seemed to move like water. He turned back toward the children's room and froze, because standing in the doorway now was a figure, tall and thin, its limbs too long for its body, head tilted at an angle that made Aaron's stomach lurch. And though its face was hidden by a curtain of black hair, he could feel its eyes on him, piercing, unblinking. It raised one arm slowly, and Aaron saw the hand was small, a child's hand, but the arm kept stretching, joints popping like breaking twigs, and the hand opened as if inviting him closer. He tried to move, but his legs felt rooted to the floor, his breath coming in short gasps as the figure stepped forward. And when the hair shifted just enough to reveal its face, Aaron wished he had never come to this house, because it was not one face but four, all fused together, mouths open in a silent scream, eyes rolling in different directions, the faces of the Whitlock family staring at him with a hunger that was not human. He stumbled backward, his flashlight slipping from his hand and clattering to the floor, its beam spinning wildly across the walls where the handprints now looked fresher, darker, dripping something thick that ran down in slow rivulets, and the figure kept moving toward him with limbs that bent in impossible ways, its four mouths opening and closing without sound like fish gasping for air, until a sound finally came. Not a scream, but a low gurgling laugh that echoed inside his head and made his vision blur. Aaron turned and ran, forcing his legs to move as the hallway seemed to stretch and warp like the house itself was breathing, the doors on either side bursting open to reveal glimpses of things that made no sense. A kitchen filled with water where chairs floated upside down, a room where dozens of dolls sat in rows staring with black eyes, and another where a figure identical to Aaron hung from the ceiling, its eyes wide and glassy, and its mouth filled with dirt. He barreled down the stairs, which now twisted like a spiral, and halfway down he saw the living room again, but it was different. The furniture overturned, claw marks gouged into the floorboards, and in the center of the room, a dark stain spreading like ink with small footprints circling it as if children had danced there. He could hear footsteps behind him, not hurried but steady, patient, and when he reached the front door he grabbed the handle, but it was ice cold, so cold it burned his skin, and it would not move no matter how hard he pulled. He slammed his shoulder against it, again and again, until he felt something hot trickling down his arm and looked to see blood, but it was not from a cut. It was seeping from the wood itself like the door was bleeding. A sound came from behind him, soft and wet, like something dragging across the floor, and when he turned, the figure was at the bottom of the stairs, its head still tilted, its body twitching in small spasms as if it was trying to fit inside a shape that was not meant for it. And now he could see its eyes, hundreds of them blooming across its skin like flowers opening in the dark, all blinking at different times, some human, some animal, and some that looked like they belonged to nothing of this earth. Aaron grabbed a chair and hurled it at the door, the wood splintering slightly but still holding, and the figure let out a long moan that started low and grew into a shriek, so high it made the windows shatter, glass raining down in sharp shards that hovered in the air instead of falling, frozen like time had stopped except for him and the thing that wore the faces of the Whitlocks. He ran for the broken window, ignoring the glass slicing into his skin, and leapt through, landing hard on the ground outside, his breath tearing in his throat as he scrambled to his feet and sprinted toward his car. The night air was thick, too thick, like breathing through water, and every step felt slower as if the earth was pulling him down, but he reached the car and yanked the door open, throwing himself inside and twisting the key in the ignition until the engine roared to life. He slammed the gear into reverse and spun the car around, tires screeching on the gravel, and that was when he saw it in the rearview mirror, standing at the edge of the driveway, its body longer now, limbs dragging across the ground, and its four mouths moving in unison to form words he could not hear but somehow understood deep inside. Words that promised he would never leave. The road stretched ahead like salvation, and he pressed the pedal to the floor, the trees whipping past in a blur. But the further he drove, the more the road curved back toward the house, until he realized with a cold dread that he was driving in circles. The same rusted gate flashed by, the same crooked mailbox, and when he passed the house again it was closer to the road, its windows glowing with a sick yellow light and figures standing in them. Dozens of figures, all thin and tall with heads tilted, all watching him. He kept driving, his hands slick on the wheel, his heart hammering against his ribs, and the radio crackled to life with that same static from before. And beneath it the whisper returned, louder now, clearer, saying his name over and over until the voices became screams. And then laughter, and then the sound of children singing that broken lullaby from upstairs. He screamed at the windshield, at the road, at the voices, until something hit the car, a shadow that swooped down like a bird with arms, and the vehicle spun out of control, flipping into a ditch where it landed upside down with a crunch of metal and shattering glass. He hung there by the seatbelt, blood dripping from his forehead, the world spinning in flashes of dark and light. And then he saw them, little feet approaching in the dirt, bare and pale, stopping just outside the shattered window. And when he turned his head, he saw two small faces peering in, smiling wide with teeth that were too sharp, too many. And behind them loomed the figure, larger than before, bending low to press all four of its mouths against the glass, as it whispered one last time in a voice that was not one voice but hundreds, "Welcome home." The next morning the road was empty except for a car lying upside down, its doors open, engine cold, and inside no sign of the driver, only a single handprint on the glass of the windshield, small and smeared in blood, pointing back toward the house that waited silently at the edge of the woods for the next visitor who would hear the tapping, the humming, and the whispers that never stopped.